Content warning. This podcast contains bones, blood, smut, and swear words.
Before we get into the good week this shit. Before we get into the good shit this week, we wanted to remind you that wait, what?
It's slightly different this time.
Before we get into the good shit this week, try number 3. We wanted to remind you that if you were a patron, you'd get to look at this murder board with your eyes. Though, given what I'm seeing, that may be dangerous for mere mortals. You know what they say. Go for the murder boards, stay for the Baywatch movie review. So if you want to help Hannah save up for a wall-sized bulletin board, you can go to patreon.com/frontline5th or follow the link in the show notes. Okay, now back to that sweet, sweet Bone Zone action.
Act 1. Welcome, penitents. Hello and welcome to the Frontline 5th, a Lock Tomb podcast where a group of dried out bone witches squabble over what they really know. We have somehow finished all of the available Lock Tomb materials, but don't worry, dear listener. We still got too many opinions to contain in our small bodies. So between efforts to ease the pain of finishing the current TLT offerings with video games, John, cheese, Brooke, Infinite Crafts, Marie, and 2000s television, moi, we have been stewing, we have been scheming, and we have been murderboarding. So speaking of my fine friends, let me introduce them. I am your host today, Hannah, and I am joined by OG dried out bone witch Marie. Marie, may I ask you, how often do you think about TLT? Is it your Roman Empire? And if not, what is?
I mean, I feel like it's, considering that I was the one who forced all of y'all into this extravaganza and to play along with me because it's my Roman Empire, I feel like it is. But also, this has satisfied a lot of, like, I have an excuse to think about it, you know? It's like, is your Roman Empire the Roman Empire if then you, like, become an academic to, like...
Right, when your hobby becomes your job.
Yeah, like, is that still your Roman Empire? And so if it's not, then I think my current Roman Empire is vaccines.
Fair.
And we'll just leave it there.
Fair enough. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But also with me today are newly dried out bone witches. I just pulled them out of my food dehydrator. That is right. I have a human-sized food dehydrator. Don't ask.
I bet
Brooke
you're making
and
some great steaks.
John.
Ew.
Brooke, what is
Or
the thing that
mistakes.
you are murderboarding in your head all the time? What is your Roman Empire? It's just food.
You're not wrong at all. The only thing that I'm doing every single day in my head all day is figuring out what I can make from dinner from what is currently in my fridge.
Brooke plays Chopped all day, every day. And John, aside from the Roman Empire, what is your Roman Empire?
Greek and Roman mythology and Norse mythology, apparently.
Fuck, I love mythology.
I do too.
Like just looking at a stack of books we have that's going in a library, and the first book I was pulling out was like, oh, I got to read this to the new guy, is literally like a mythology anthology that just like covers every single Greek, Roman, and Norse myth in like a book that is like, you know, several inches thick. So I'm very excited about that.
I realize that I know the Odyssey. I know all the main like story beats, and I've read like very many versions of it, but I've never read the Odyssey. And so that's actually what I'm doing this summer. What's your Roman Empire, Hannah?
I'm not a huge fan of the Odyssey. But firstly, Homer is the most self-congratulatory author of all fucking time. I do fucking adore myths. And I will say also, dear listener, if you're looking for a really good collection of myths, I really like Dolaire's Norse myths. That's my favorite. My Roman Empire is, in fact, all of the 2000s television. And it's not something that I murderboard about, but it is something I think about literally every day. I cannot tell you how often I think of a 30 Rock reference and have to not tell other people about it because it's just too many. You can't do that 25 times a day. It is not. It's a little niche, I guess. 30 Rock applies to everything. There's a reference for absolutely everything. You know what? We'll leave it.
I've definitely watched a lot of 30 Rock, but I don't think I could recognize a 30 Rock quote if you gave one to me.
Well, I'm going to start dropping them in randomly.
How weird is it that a show called 30 Rock happened at a location called 30 Rock?
This is so cray. All right. Well, now that we've got that squared away, we can get to the real business of the day. I will be honest, listener. I don't know how this is going to go. I, in my madness, tried to map out everything we know, leaving little pockets of things we don't know to discuss. It made more sense in that dream I had with the flying dog and the sentient wheel of Colby Jack.
It is very impressive, though. You have wrangled this into something that is tackleable.
Thank you. And I mean, in this vein, Brooke, I did actually want to ask you. That is my first impression. Yeah, what your first impression is. So I appreciate that a lot. To me, it's a bit of a monstrosity. Robin looked at this and I mean, he may have gagged on that grape, or he may have gagged because of the, murder board. It's really, really tough to say.
It's true that you sent us the Canva construction of your murder board before you sent an outline for the episode. And I opened the Canva and I said, I need a second monitor, an external monitor that is very large for this, which I do not have. and I do not do podcast things at work. And I was like, well, this is going to be tough. And then you gave us an outline, and I was like, this outline is exactly correct. This has wrangled this into sense.
Yeah, never. Yes. I've been so thankful that I have 2 gigantic monitors dedicated just for this. So this made going through this so much.
I actually for the first time ever, I stole Robin's laptop and am using it as a second monitor today because I needed to be able to do too many things at once. All right. Does everyone, did you get your first impressions out? Should we just go for it?
I also am just seeing #quantum wheelies popped up on there, and chef's kiss.
I had a weird experience like a couple years ago where I was at this farmer's market in Eugene when my friend cornered me and was like, do you want to do a podcast about Gideon the Ninth? And my first thought was that all I wanted to do was Murderboard, because literally what happened when I finished Note of the Ninth was I called my little sister and I made her call her friend who had done it, and I made us Zoom with a whiteboard app because I was trying to draw lines between it. And ever since then, I've been trying to buy a wall-size bulletin board. So, this has been a real pleasure for me. Patrons, if you see this, I'm sorry. Well, with that, please close your eyes, unless you're driving, in which case no blinking, and imagine one murder board to rule them all. Act 2. Tell me the implications.
This episode is Spoiler City, people. Spoiler City! Also, it will be simply unintelligible if you haven't read through Note of the Ninth in the Locked Tomb series. Of course, if abject confusion is your jam, who am I to yuck your yum? Because that is something I personally adore in a book.
So, I have more or less organized this in in-universe chronological order. I shall now attempt to summarize the plot. God help me. It is essential that all of you interrupt me anytime you have something to add. Let's get into the weeds at the edge of the riverbank. Okay, sometime in the first part of the 21st century, around now in our time, it's clear that the Earth is dying. There's a number of plans to save it, right? We have a cryopreservation project headed up by John and a competing faster-than-light escape project funded by a bunch of trillionaires.
Capitalized. I would like to point out that the trillionaires is capitalized in our...
I like the idea that the trillionaires... Right?
Yeah, I was going to say, God, imagine living in a fantasy world where trillionaires exist.
Well, we just got our first, technically.
And he would escape the world, using some shit faster than light technology that he was not actually involved
honestly,
in building, but we'll take advantage of.
He's been playing the long con. Been playing the long con. He's already got the company based for it.
Just awful. All right, so the facility is made up of John. We have G, who's an engineer, P, who's a cop, A, who's our glycerol guru, A's little brother, who seems to be a hedge fund manager, M, who is a doctor, some sort of medical stuff, M's nun friend, who is a nun, C, who is a lawyer, N, who is an artist. Those two are together. They get married. And then we have a bunch of dead bodies, right? So at some point, John literally starts gaining powers granted to him by the Earth. His eyes change to gold, and he can now preserve bodies. He can make them move, and he can turn cows into perpetual bone shields. So the first thing I want to ask you guys about, what do we actually think are the limits or structure of John's powers? We know that that Earth gave him power. We know that the first thing he discovers is power over kind of dead things. What do you all think?
The eye thing is a little bit odd because we think of the eyes. Wait, I had like kind of forgotten this in the, I don't know, in the morass of information we've spewed over the past months. His eyes were not gold initially. They were brown. They turned gold, and then later on he ate earth. And I don't know if that's the point at which, no, but like at some point his eyes turned black, but somehow his friends, the OG lictors, know that his eyes were gold initially because they understand like the consequences of seeing recessive lipochrome eye color. So where does the gold thing come from?
Here's what I think it is.
Go for it.
His eyes are like amber-y, like unusual light brown eyes. So he already has an unusual light eye, like light brown eye color.
Propensity for lipochrome.
Yes. As he gains powers, that like ramps up even more so that they're like literally like yellow amber cat eyes rather than just human very light brown eyes. And that is why there's a genetic component to his eye color.
Which we know it's genetic because he passes it to Gideon.
Right.
So we know it's like embedded in the germline. Do you think that the necromancy powers were genetically provided then? Is that like what we're saying?
No.
Is that giving powers meant some sort of
necessarily.
genetic modification that like also included the eyes?
I think we don't know like why his eye color changes once he starts getting like powers at the end of this. But we do know that he did like the cavalier shit with Alecto, and that's why he has the crazy black eyes, because those are actually Alecto's eyes. Alecto has his eyes, which are the yellow gold eyes, and he has Alecto's eyes, and that's why Mercy could freak the fuck out when she saw Gideon's eyes.
Oh, right, because they were freaking out about Alecto's eyes.
Yes,
not
they see
Jod's.
Alecto's eyes in Gideon's face, and they realize, like, she puts all of these things together
Right.
of, like, Gideon is the right age, she's from the 9th house, she has Alecto's yellow eyes, she knows
Which
about
are
the
Jod's.
Cavalier Lictor swapping, or she knows that you get your Cavalier's eyes when you do full Lictorhood, and so she basically freaks out and says, he lied to us, there's a different way, which is also what Kithareya says at the very beginning in the first book. You lied to us. She like writes it in blood on the walls.
Yeah, because she's extra.
Like, I guess the weirdest place to start here is why does Earth give John specifically powers? And also, why does Earth have the power to bestow necromancy?
Fucking phenomenal questions.
Are we going with the, like, that large enough souls and planets, like, because of, like, death and life happening on Earth? Like, basically, like, there's always some aspect of a planet
That has a soul.
that has a soul, and just because it's so large, there's some aspect of controlling life and death, like, on a planet. And so it's just able to kind of, like, nudge that. We never have really gotten a good answer to the question of why can Earth give necromancy powers of all things? Like, why do you get life and death powers from a planet?
It's not necromancy in the way that we traditionally think about it.
I think my kind of thing, and the way that it starts out and the way that Alecto talks to him of like saying like, you did this, like I gave you power and you did this, is that he basically corrupted the power that he had. Like he was supposed to have power over life. And he was supposed to have a more balancing power. And basically he fucked it up because he is a bitter, small, vengeful person.
Yeah, I think like the point here is that like, you know, I think we can connect this back to fundamental yin and yang circle of life sort of concepts, right? And so thalergy and thanergy are these forces that on Earth in a healthy environment are happening in balance. And what Marie, I think you're getting at is basically he focused on the thanergy, which is maybe why we call it necromancy, when in reality, like, he has power over life too, right? Like, and so do most necromancers, like, you know, being able to manipulate fat and life forms and doing medicine of sorts. Like, these are all aspects of, that's not necromancy as we understand it, like, traditionally. Like, it's not just raising dead bodies and, like, shoving souls into corpses or whatever.
No, he can heal people, right? Like, that's...
Yeah, the first thing that John does is heal people, is be Jesus for like a month, right? And I also think it's notable that actually in the first book, Palamedes says something about, you know, he's like, medical necromancy, like that's an oxymoron, except he's always doing medical necromancy.
Word joke. You know what it is? He just says that's just a wordplay joke. That's what's happening there. he's like, to say something is medical necromancy is weird, but it is like what they are doing is medical.
Yes. Which tells
he
you
doesn't
maybe
consider
that
it necromancy
is the wrong word then, right?
Yes, exactly.
I like that a lot.
That's exactly it.
I like that a lot. The other thing that I want to kind of just like put out there is we see some weird stuff in the dream that he's having where he's like wandering the world with Electo/Harrow, right? And one of the things that he can do there is raise up land masses. So I wanted to know from you guys, is this about building in the river? Because the dream could just be in the river maybe. Or is this some sort of real phenomenon? And I don't know the answer.
I think that there's a difference between pre-Jod John with powers and post-Jod John, who has become like a perfect lictor pair, perfect in quotes, has become a pair with Electo. Because once he's done that with Electo, he is Electo and she is him. Like they're melded.
And Electo is Earth, so
and Electo
has
is Earth.
Power with Earth.
That is like the way that I think about it.
Interesting. No, I like that a lot. The other thing that I kind of want to, sorry, this is jumping backwards, but in terms of this kind of yin and yang balance, and then he kind of fails that test and only goes towards the energy, I just thought of something, which is that later in Harrow the Ninth, Teacher in the river bubble will say something about how the resurrection didn't create anything new. Like, and I kind of think that that's an interesting thing, is that Jod is sort of incapable as a person, I think, not in terms of his powers, but like he personally is incapable of new creation. He's like such a person who needs control and holding on to the past and holding on to his idea of what's true.
I wonder if it also goes to what Ianthe talks about, and even a little bit of like some of the conversations I think that happened with Augustin, that where is the energy coming from?
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's like that he didn't create anything new. Is like literally part of the problem is that all of the energy comes from somewhere. And it's kind of interesting of like what is going to happen to, like, you can't get Earth back because he's been using up her essentially almost infinite soul, that he has been using it up.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about the fact that maybe he's putting a dent in that, even in ways that lictors couldn't put a dent in their calves or something. Unclear. But I think you are kind of getting to another point that Hannah was addressing your initial question of what are the limits? Like the soul. He doesn't have any power over the soul outside of being able to like attach it to a body.
Right. Right. In terms of, well, and I mean, this goes to the entire premise of like the unwanted guest. How much can you manipulate a soul? And
right. And
that answer is not clear.
Can you maintain it? Can you keep it healthy? Can what anything other than just like attaching it, he has not shown any aptitude for. It's unclear that he has any like, he's not even really particularly aware of it if he cares. Like, memory is not a part of a soul, in my opinion. Like, a memory is a biological thing.
Right. And that's how he modifies memory. I mean, at one point he says he knows where in the brain the memory lives. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's keep moving. So the Trillionaires, that competing project, get their project up and running. Their goal is literally to peace out with these FTL faster than light ships, leaving the dying Earth behind. So John tries to stop this first by negotiation. He sends G to negotiate, nuke in hand. Notably, he first takes off G's arm. He's got plans for that arm. We'll get back to that later. And when those FTL ships start taking off, John is so incensed that he literally destroys the world. He stops G's heart, which sets off a nuke in Melbourne. He launches a whole bunch of other nukes from a politician puppet that he's puppeting. And then he lictors the Earth, taking in part of its soul to power him. And so for good measure, he reaches out and stops the heart of everyone left on Earth before reaching out into space and killing off all of the solar system planets one after another, plus Pluto, which is, you know, presumably to tell us that he's a millennial that still #believes. So he reaches out. He tries to stop the FTL ships. He manages to hold just one in his metaphorical hand before it slips away. And for the rest of forever, he will be obsessed with revenge on those FTL trillionaire motherfuckers who left Earth behind to die.
He also kills the sun, right? Like, that is something that we think is in there, but there's no RB for the sun, because I guess there's no life on the sun, right? It's just it's purely a chemical reaction. Like, we've gotten, he powers the sun, right? Like, when he resurrects the sun, like, he has to constantly feed it power, because when he gets blown up in Harrow, it shuts off for a second, and he has to like basically come back when he comes back.
This is
and,
a great
like,
point.
Like there's no RB from the sun though. I don't know. There's
Stars are different than planets, but I don't know if it has anything to do with life. I guess that we've never really talked about. We've talked about like the planet's soul being like the combination of like the things that live on it, but like maybe you could pretend that for Mars, but like I don't know that we've got any idea of that on any of our other solar system planets.
Yeah,
I don't know,
because all the
Something
planets are stable. They're dead, but they're stable, right? Like that's like a unique thing. That's unique only to the 9 houses. But then we also
that's
have
what they had said.
we also have a dead sun, but an unstable sun that he has to keep running at all times.
That he theoretically powers. Yeah. And there's like, yeah, no, I think
Earth
that's really
powering the
interesting.
sun? What an irony.
I was gonna say, I'm assuming that would use a lot of soul power over time to keep the sun running.
It's
But who knows?
possible, but like, I mean,
Anyway.
is the soul ever diminished? Is the whole question in the unwanted guest. Is this a perpetual battery or not? Who knows? And you're working with an entire Earth worth of soul.
Well, and maybe more actually, since they've been going around killing other planets left and right.
Speaking of Earth's soul, there's literally too much to fit into one John. So he puts the rest into a new body modeled on Hollywood hair Barbie. And he and this new creature, let's see, I have her down here somewhere. There's Electo and Hollywood hair Barbie. The new creature is going to variably be called Electo, A.L., Annabelle Lee, and Annie Laurie. And they wander the post-apocalypse world together for some amount of time, which we end up kind of seeing their memories of in Nona the Ninth and her dreams. We've gone over the names a little bit, but I did just kind of want to, check back in one more time, remind everyone that to every possible extent, Annabelle Lee and Annie Laurie is just about young girls as sexual objects. Like that's like what it comes down to. It's about complete and total obsession on the part of Annabelle Lee towards the writer. And that's Edgar Allan Poe writing about his very young cousin that he will marry. And then we have Annie Laurie, who's all tits, just tits for days, and is also described as quite young. So the one thing that I kind of wanted to ask you guys is it just coincidence that these are both ALs? Or did he choose those initials with intention? She also gets called Electo, who is she's the Fury who's in charge of
Fury.
Well, Fury and Fate, right?
Yeah. She's the Fury who's in charge of punishing, I think, like mortal sins. But I was kind of interested in the fact that all of these are AL names. And my weird little random thought that may or may not be true is it made me wonder whether that had to do with his original name, whether he named her for himself, because they have a lot of like swappy names, right? He names himself John Gaius, which is John and then Earth.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm not sure is there a relevance in the case that it is?
Nope. Just a thought.
His early name?
Key thing is, after he lictors Earth, after he wanders the world, he starts resurrecting people. And the first thing he does is resurrect his old facility friends. And I think, is it fair to say that we think that he literally erases their memories?
Yes. 1000% he does.
Or at least changes them.
Yes. Good points.
I also think it's interesting because like this is one of the theories is like part of the reason that Gideon is described as like just all gristle and basically like uncomfortably buff with like no body fat and like skin stretched over his skull. Like part of the reason he's described that way and part of the reason that he seems like such a weird personality is that there wasn't a body to resurrect. Like there's like that's literally why he kept the arm. He remade a body for Gideon to put the soul in from the arm.
So there's not a lot of excess.
But yeah, you think he's not as good as Hera was when she's like follow the map that they're already
or
kind
just
of
like partly that, but also maybe it's a little bit like this is his image of his best friend, like his mental image of his best friend. Is
Dude,
this like
I'm
uncomfortably buff dude? And then also like, of course, he's always going to have memory problems or his brain is always going to be a little bit weird because he never got his full brain back.
Yeah. So this brings up
back out.
something just like, interesting, right? In that, we were just talking about memories being attached to the brain versus the soul, like, and bodies. The whole like resurrection implies at least somewhat, although we think they're, based on the tower and things at the very end of Nona that this could change. But it seems like he can go find individual souls out of the river. Like that if he can't do that, then he was just stuffing souls into bodies and then making the memories that are attached to their brain make them think that they're that person, right? Like,
John, I love you. I actually want to get into this a little bit. Okay, so first thing I want to point out is that Ulysses and Titania were already long dead.
And he had no idea who they were as people. Like,
there's no way he found the right soul there, right?
Here's the funny thing about the arm. Like, maybe that's like a revenant sort of thing.
Yeah, he calls the soul back, similar to what what Abigail tries to do. Right? Like, they try to summon the soul back via the arm.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Like, how much are you attached to your body? Is that a point of reference that you could always kind of pull on? But this is also going to get into something that Marie has been consistently interested in, which is the discrepancy in numbers. So after he resurrects his friends, he starts resurrecting other people. They start building the houses and populating the houses, but he only ever resurrects millions out of the 10 billion that died. Marie, do you want to talk about this?
I think this was like early on, and this is very definitely from like Reddit threads or whatever, but this goes to, he calls Harrow a resurrection, and you can basically do the math and say, if there's 10 billion and it takes 200 souls to get one back, to like power one back, then there aren't 10 billion souls to be put back into 10 billion bodies, even if you could remake the bodies from their component pieces or atoms or whatever, because you literally have to use souls.
The costs are greater than the
That
gains.
is the cost, and that's why he hasn't done resurrection again. And it also goes into theories of like what the devils are or what is going wrong with the river, because the problem with the devils is like the devils could be like the mangled souls that got used for the resurrection.
It's like, I'm just picturing like the devil's shop. It's literally like John walking up to the counter in like a room full of cursed items, and it's like, here's 200 like mangled like dead souls. I get one good soul. Like, do we have a deal type thing? And just and then the 200 could.
Do you think that has anything to do with there being devils on the 9th house? 17, 18 years later,
Potentially,
yes.
Is Harrow's sort of form of resurrection. So like there's still a discrepancy in numbers. I don't know. One of the things I was wondering is like, I don't know, like if I were God, and here's a fun place to be. If I were God, and the Earth was dying, and we had 10 billion people on the planet, and
what if God
I
was
suddenly
John
had
Gaius?
it in my power to be like, okay, well, we've got an opportunity to start from scratch. Like,
you're not going to bring back 10 billion people.
No, I don't think so. Even under like optimal circumstances, like
There's
I don't
too many
think
people.
There's a good
That's
plan
part
for
of
it. But the problem is simply he's not good with souls, and so maybe it's become a problem that that discrepancy has become a problem. But like, yes, ultimately he is at fault for the death of those 10 billion. But it almost seems like that's maybe what Alecto would have wanted. I don't know. And it's an interesting, I think there's a moral question outside of just this like simple singular discrepancy in numbers of like the only right thing to do would have bring back 10 billion. And it's like, oh God, but like in reality, how? Like as soon as you actually consider the concept, like how you would do that.
One thing that just popped into my mind as you were talking that is that the only place where necromancers are born are the 9 houses, right? Is part of the, like, we know like Harrow gets guaranteed like basically to be a necromancer by kind of the resurrection, the 200 soul. Is part of the cost like that he's paid is not only obviously like the exchange rate of getting like one fully resurrected soul in exchange for whatever like mangled revenant souls, but also like what is the cost for passing along necromantic powers to the resurrected people, right? Like
I'm still on team necromancy is genetic.
There is some soul cost to necromancy, it seems like, or like there was at one point. It's passed down genetically.
I like the idea that like it would have cost more to initially create some sort of necromancy powers in these people. Which, by the way, like, how did Jod create necromancers, or did Alecto create more necromancers? Like, where did these extra necromancers come from?
I think that's a really phenomenal question, actually. Is like, it's one thing for Earth to give it powers to a specific person, but then we end up with a whole world of necromancers and not everyone. I think both of those things are important and relevant and interesting. I don't know where necromancy comes from.
And also like subpar, like even to what we saw Jod having on Earth pre-apocalypse.
Great point. That like the greatest necromancer of their generation is not going to be at a Jod level even before he lictors Earth. Yeah, I'm with you. All right, so our friends found the houses. They initially built on the Mars installation. That's why the second house is the second. Eventually, they recruit 3 more pairs of people from the houses. So we get this second generation group here. That's Cyrus and Valency, Cytherea and Loveday, and Anastasia and Samael. There's some indication that Anastasia and Valency are both from the 6th house. So Mercy basically says, we had the 6th house installation up and running by then. That's why because Valency and Anastasia were already with us. Like, that's the quote. Some of all of his friends here, the people from the original facility, this second generation group, some of them are necromantically gifted. And they start working on projects in the Canaan House facility in order to try and become, it's described as basically trying to become immortal so that Jod doesn't have to keep them alive indefinitely. And they figure out the lictor process. They figure out the 8-fold word. It is notable, so there's a couple notable things here. Anastasia and Samael try to perfect it. According to Jod, something went wrong, Anastasia panicked, and Samael died. We think that's really unlikely. It seems pretty clear, actually, that they had it right. And that's something that I feel like gets said actually explicitly much later on, maybe in Nona. But additionally, Mercy notes that it's weird that she managed it in chaos when Anastasia failed under lab conditions. The first that actually succeed in becoming lictors are Augustine and Mercy Morn. And it's widely understood, I think, in the fandom that Alfred and Christabel probably had a suicide pact in order to force their hands. So I have some notes over here. So basically, Augustine says at one point, I don't think she was the best influence on Alfred. Christabel was the best influence. I thought they brought out the worst in each other. She was a fanatic and an idiot, and he was a man who regretted that he wasn't. I have built an entire myriad on the idea that I could have made him come around, given 5 minutes. And later he says, you picked the wrong man to enter into a suicide pact with. I hate him. Christabel might have undone all my good work with Alfred, but here comes the reckoning.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
The thought is that potentially these two literally killed themselves in front of their necromancers in order to force them to perform the 8-fold word. This also explains why Mercy said
Gideon
that she
style.
had to do it in a panic. It's exactly like Gideon and Harrow. Yeah. And it's
except maybe less in a corner.
Yeah. Well, and it's horrifying. It's like deeply, deeply upsetting. I think it's also interesting and horrifying that makes 2 different suicides from Christabel, both to force someone into action. Neither of them were about her. Both of them were about her, like, trying to trigger something in someone else.
Right. Her as the nun who also was close with Alfred. So that's kind of like a interesting, like, continuation.
That's a great point.
Yeah. Well, and it brings up of like these pairings seem to be like from his memories in the facility of like these pairings and like the relationships and stuff. Like they come up again, right? Like all of these pairings come up again. Like they didn't shuffle around or whatever. And so it's like he knows where memory lives, but also that goes to the unwanted guest conversation of course, the personality and the way that you live your life leaves like an impression on the soul. So then it's like how much of it is like your memories and your experiences, and how much of it is just like your inherent like properties from your soul.
Mercy and Augustine will always be at odds, and that's about them, right? That's not about any specific memory.
This fully supports the argument that he did manage to get these souls correct back into their bodies, at least these sets. And it's maybe because he knew them and had their objects lying around back on Earth, even post-apocalypse, etc., in the facility or in the cryo like building or whatever.
Oh, right. Like he had like a string on him, kind of.
Right. Even like an arm as a bigger connection.
Well, he had their bodies, but also like
that's true. He did have everybody's bodies in the end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
they were all there.
He could have used that as like the string to the soul.
I agree that I think it's very interesting that even with their memories wiped, they like fell into the sort of the same patterns, and that like would be kind of unexpected when like, you know, your life experiences kind of generally shape who you are, and like given an entirely different set of life experiences, you might have an entirely different like set of relationships. But yeah, I like the idea that that soul had been imprinted. That's that whole unwanted guest concept.
I really like that a lot. I think that's fascinating. You can't actually shape people into something you want them to be. There's some part of them that is themselves no matter what. And even though it gets modified, even though it gets, you know, touched by your memories, by the people around you, everything leaves an impression, but you are still at your core yourself. All right, so let's talk about another pair that I find completely fascinating. And I think this is probably my most contentious hot take that I'm obsessed with. So let's talk about Gideon and Pyrrha. Gideon and Pyrrha are the next to succeed. They are not your typical necro-cav pair. So, for example, when we first come on the second house Lictor study, there's actually a sparring floor with 2 rapiers, as though they both are capable of using the sword. The second lab winnowing trial gets referred to as Pyrrha's trial, not as Gideon's trial. And then there's a number of things in the text that, to me, suggest that Pyrrha has some serious necromantic knowledge. So we know that they compartmentalized, and Pyrrha was able to go underground, even from Gideon. But there's also a bunch of things that she says that I find interesting. She says, when Gideon and I designed that trial, I used to crack his soul and sieve it myself. The other person she would sieve is Christabel. So this means that Pyrrha is like really deeply tied to creating this second house trial. And she describes it as when Gideon and I designed it. And then later, she also says, Cass and Mercy and I worked on self-energy. So my completely insane take that is not shared by the fandom is that I think that Pyrrha is a necromancer. And I don't know if that's a question of Pyrrha being the necromancer and Gideon being the cavalier, or if they both had necromantic abilities, or some third thing, because we don't know also how thoroughly Gideon was resurrected. He's a very spare person. He was resurrected just from a single arm. He only ever says things in single words. We have no way of knowing whether that's who he was when he was G back on Earth.
Or whether that was him 10,000 years ago.
Yes, exactly. Like, no fucking idea.
9,000 years, I guess 9,000 years ago in the facility.
And then the very last 2 things that we have about Pyrrha that are weird is that she actually, late in this book, she says something like, oh, G, your sacrifice was for nothing. It's G dash. It's not Gideon. It's exactly the way that the names are referred to in the dream. And so I think, and I think some of the fandom thinks, that potentially this indicates that she can remember some degree of what happened on Earth, that what she's saying there is Gideon's original real name, and it's not something anyone else can really hear. Does that sound right, Marie?
Yeah, well, and there's also other things of like she makes references to Earth-like things that nobody else does. So she says like he's dressing them like the military wing of disco, and she references the hokey pokey, and she calls Nona Harry McClary.
She's got lots of little knowledge from. I love this. Yeah. So, what do you guys think about this theory?
Well, outside of Gideon doing just like standard Lictor healing and then also just being able to wipe away wards, right? Does he actually ever do any necromancy?
He's the Thanergy Void.
Well,
that's all we know is that he's a Thanergy Void. And that does seem like it would be something innate as opposed to active necromancy.
The entire second book is him trying to kill Harrow in like a martial way as opposed to a necromantic way, right? And so...
Yeah, he always goes after her that way. It doesn't seem like he goes after her with necromancy.
Outside of destroying her necromancy.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty overpowered defense.
Yeah, like he is just much more like muscular and strong and like
and
a better build.
Wards he's got nothing for apparently, which actually I guess is kind of true about most people.
That blood wards are hard.
Just burn them away.
And I think it would be fun just because almost all the like lictors that we've met do it in different ways, right? Like Lictorhood is not a monolith, right? Like they like Harrow and Gideon do it differently. Cam and Powell, like it just, I guess Anthony and does it like the traditional way. But like I think it would be funny if like, you know, we have yet another way of getting into Lictorhood via Pyrrha and Gideon like just reversing it, right? And
yeah.
Okay, cool. Like how do you think that wouldn't Jod have a problem with that, maybe? Or was he just kind of like, whatever, like, seems to work? he would have known who the necromancer is. Are you kidding?
Well, but if they were always collaborating on something, like, I mean, and what if they're always, think about it this way.
You think
what if it's
Corona,
an Corona
exactly.
thing?
It seems like a stretch. Like they would have had to wake up and kind of like already start fooling him. I don't know. It feels like there's holes in the argument outside of the fact that like I like it as an explanation.
I think my core thing is that there is something wrong with our conception.
Yes.
That like, as John said, the Gideon Pyrrha thing does not match the template for Lictor. It doesn't. And so there's something that has to be able to explain that discrepancy.
I was just wondering if this Thanergy Void thing, which might be a property of Gideon, I agree. Like, it doesn't seem, I completely agree. It's like that being a necromantic ability feels weird, considering necromancy is Thanergy.
Right? You wouldn't be able to do necromancy if you were a Thanergy Void.
Right. So but as a result, like the question basically for me is whether or not that was always something that was going on with him and like maybe a property of the way he got regenerated or something. I don't know. That particular feature is somehow what created the sort of compartmentalization that if the eightfold word got like distorted because of that Thanergy Void, which the opposite of a Thanergy Void is if Thanergy Voids strip Thanergy. Does that mean it's generating life? Does that mean it's generating life, like the balance thing?
Okay. I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. Maybe he's a thalergetic, magician instead of a thanergetic one. I don't
know.
Something really weird here.
Agreed. That's an interesting idea. Thank you for sharing.
I do also want to get back to what happens to Anastasia after Samael's death. So basically, at some point in the chaos of this early Lictor period, the Lictors collectively convince Jod that he has to get rid of Alecto. She's a monster. She's too scary. And so he tells them that he killed her, but he really kind of put her in some sort of stasis and locks her in the tomb, and Anastasia gets relegated to Tomb Keeper. What we find out at the very, very end of Nona the Ninth is that Alecto swore allegiance to Anastasia and to the line of the Tomb Keepers. So if we head over here, do we have thoughts or feelings about Anastasia and Alecto and why that got sworn? Are there any other things to think about here?
I think it's interesting because doesn't Jod say something about how they were supposed to just die out? Or like there's other like references of like they were just supposed to die out. So Anastasia was not supposed to create a house. She wasn't supposed to. That's why it's the last house. So there were only ever supposed to be 8 houses.
So how did they get away with this shit?
That's the big question, right? Is like, why did Jod just look the other way? There's a lot of speculation of like, who was Samael? Was Samael her partner and the father of her children? Was Samael her son? Did she already have children? Was Samael her father? I kind of like, and I've kind of forgotten the details of this, and I think there's some comments on our episodes where Hannah and I went spinning off on this, and we kind of like the parallel of, I think it has to do with like Isaac and like biblically, like Isaac and Abraham and like having to sacrifice your own son, like kind of like flipping that.
Being told by God to sacrifice your son and refusing to. Well, I mean, Abraham goes for it.
Yeah. And maybe that's why they were trying to do perfect Lictorhood, like even more so. And that's why he stopped them. And it's also, I think it's interesting to point out that the sermon on necromancers and cavaliers has all of these rules about relationships you're not supposed to have. So it's not supposed to be siblings. It's not supposed to be, which is Alfred and Augustine. It's not supposed to be like married couples or people in a relationship that way, which is Nigella and Cassiopeia. It's not supposed to be parent and child, which is not one that we've seen.
All right, can I throw out my absolute crazy theory for this one?
Yes, John.
We have to figure out, why does Alecto swear allegiance to Anastasia before, right? Obviously she gets trapped and put in, right? Like, so it's like there's an active betrayal. of John. And my crazy theory, that I'm just calling my shot now, is that Anastasia and Alecto bonded over trying to figure out how to separate the soul back from the lictor process. Like she's she's trying to bring her son or partner or whatever back in the ninth house. Like that's what Alecto would want, is trying to get like basically separate from John at the end of the process without dying or remaining whole. Like basically like getting the part of her soul back that became the lictor process.
Yeah. One of the things that gets said multiple times about Earth, basically, and Alecto is just that she's so scared to die. Yeah. That actually, like, yeah, that's like a deep, deep fear. Nothing's ever really ready to die. I like that a lot. I will say, I think there's reason to believe that Anastasia dies inside of the tomb, because in the very end of Nona, she can see her bones. So I also don't know. Did Jod close the door, was like, peace out, Anastasia, and Anastasia sat there doing, like patty cake with Alecto for half an hour
until she starved? That, or, I mean, what is the possibility that, like, Alecto could haunt Anastasia and everybody else in her bloodline to some extent? Like, and, like, there was a way for her, even when she was in stasis, to be in communication with Alecto.
That's interesting.
Yeah, actually, okay, so I have this later,
Anastasia.
But let's chat about this now. In Gideon the Ninth, Harrow says, the ninth house has a secret nav. Only my family knows of it, and even we could never discuss it unless, this was my mother's rule, we were immersed in salt water. We kept a ceremonial pool for the purpose, hidden from the rest of the house. So there's a lot of stuff we can talk about with salt water, and we can get into that when we talk about the river too. But I wonder what the ninth house knows. What is this like secret knowledge that's being passed down? Anastasia clearly dies in the tomb, but either has to transmit some important information about the tomb to her offspring, or we get some sort of haunting. I think, for me, saltwater is something Alecto can always experience. I think things that are told in saltwater can be heard by Alecto. She's a saltwater creature. And you get 100,000 of these things where Nona feels better when she's in the ocean. She feels like if she could just find the words, she could make everyone understand when she's in the water, that kind of thing. So there's something special about saltwater and communication with Alecto, but I am really interested to know what the ninth house knows and whether they actually are dedicated to Jod or not. You get the impression that Harrow really is fervently dedicated to her god up until the moment that she's not.
Well, when she like walks away into right at the end of the visions, where she starts walking towards the tower to find God.
Yeah.
Well, I think Harrow the Ninth is also really interesting in the way of like somebody who deeply believes in something and having it be dismantled in front of you by that thing.
Yeah. It's devastating.
Yeah, there's something about like having this deep belief and having it like be the core of how you live your life, and then not just, like other things around it dismantle it, but the thing itself in front of you is showing you that it is not worthy of being believed in. So like Harrow is literally losing her religion all throughout Harrow the Ninth, and desperately trying to hang on to it, and she can't, because it's being like proven in front of her that this is not true or worth her devotion.
It's actually remarkable. I mean, I think it's really incredibly difficult for people to leave cults. Right? I mean, what it is at its core is this abusive relationship, and you don't want to believe it's abusive because you've given so much of yourself to it and you believed so hard that even when you're seeing these things happen, it's very hard to let go.
There's one more piece about what does the ninth house know, which is my suspicion is that what the ninth house knows. I have two things here. One, Harrow doesn't know what the ninth house knows. She knows some of it, but she doesn't know the whole story because her parents died before they could tell her. But additionally, her parents have to know that they are bound to Alecto, or rather that Alecto is bound to them, because they have this imperative where they are willing to destroy the rest of their house to continue their own line.
Yeah, but clearly what else they know must be limited, because they killed themselves over the shame of her entering the tomb.
I don't think it's the shame. I think it's the true belief of like, remember what the prayer is. I pray the rock is never rolled away. And how is Alecto talked about? Alecto was talked about like as the end of God.
Yeah, so but that means that the only thing that got passed down would have been this imperative to pass on the bloodline, because clearly like more nuance around what is the value of this religion, is Jod somebody to be trusted and worshipped. I don't think that would have gotten passed down via Alecto and Anastasia, given kind of what we're seeing happen here at the end of Nona. And
this is a great point.
I don't know.
I also think that we should remember that 10,000 years is a long time for things to get mangled.
Oh my God.
And Eminem
That's
can
true.
become,
That's true.
you know, Eminem can become the most beautiful of important lyrics. So
can I also bring up a truly obnoxiously Catholic perspective on this, which is interesting,
please do.
I think, which is the Marian cults. So like one of the things that Catholics get like hard side eye from Protestants about is the rosary and a devotion to Mary, and saying like, why are you worshiping Mary? And Catholics are like, we're not, like, she was human, it's fine. But also she's human and you believe she's the mother of God. Like obviously she's pretty freaking special, even if she's not God herself. But there are cults in Christianity that basically like cross the line in terms of like where Catholics would draw it, I guess. And so it's like a heresy. And so I think it's really interesting of like the 8th house is like the 9th house are nutty heretics because they worship this thing in the tomb. But the people in the 9th house are like, no, we like think both of them are important.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting.
You have forgotten something important, basically.
Back with the rest of the lictors, it turns out that even after you murder your best friend, it's not all fun and games. They've got a number of problems. In the process of killing the planets, Jod created the resurrection beasts, right? Jod is constantly obsessed with the expansion, ever expanding and expanding and expanding, because he's on this search and destroy mission that Augustine describes as being out of a pure symbolic retribution. And also, Blood of Eden is founded. So Jod says that they stumbled on BOE about 5,000 years ago, but BOE had been looking for them the whole time. And we know a couple things about BOE, so we'll get into it. But the first thing I want to know is, where do we think these non-9th house people are from? And it may not matter, but no, actually it does matter. I basically think, so Brooke has two options here. I have a third option. Brooke, do you want to tell us what yours are?
Right. I mean, the two options that I thought of were, it's either an FTL ship popped out of FTL and is alive. I'm not sure that I don't know how they missed Jod's notice or something. But anyway, the other option is that their house are like otherwise resurrection defectors.
Yeah. And then I will add one more, which is that we actually know that there was a Mars installation that was as close to up and running as is reasonable. And there was something called the Kuiper Project, even on old Earth. So I also think that there may have been a small number of humans who were in orbit anyway.
Oh, my active speculation is that it's all people that got away in the various ships. It's why John hates them. It's why he's hunting. He's killing the planets for the RBs, and he's subjugating the people because he's, hates the billionaires. And Blood of Eden, I think, is probably like the thing that goes bump in the night, or what the trillionaires pass down as legend or start as an insurgents group when they finally get away, right? Because they're aware of John, and they might have, if it's the one that just got out of his hands, or they know the power he had and he nuked the earth as they were leaving. Like, the first thing I'm going to do as a scheming trillionaire is start telling legend to prepare for, in case he ever comes after us, right? We got to start sowing the seeds of legend so that our descendants can find. So I don't know. I would say that, we're going to create a small army to fight him if he ever actually finds us and shows up. So Blood of Eden's been looking for the whole time. And I think that lines up with just the people who got away line up with the name Blood of Eden, right? Which is, Eden is the garden of paradise, right? Promised to humans, and Earth is Eden, right? We are the blood of original Earth that got away.
He says, when she asks, who is Eden? And he says, somebody they left to die. And basically you don't get to come back and ask for something if you left it.
Yeah, so I think it's all the descendants of the people who got away.
That's a good argument.
So I love that. I'm going to give two conflicting things. One, I think calling yourself not just Eden, but Blood of Eden implies direct lineage, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So I'm with you on that. They are the people who were on Earth. However, it doesn't explain why Jod is still searching. He is still searching and expanding.
And he doesn't care about Blood of Eden.
And he doesn't give a shit about Blood of Eden.
He doesn't hate them or care them, yeah.
There's something that he's looking for. And so there's a couple possibilities here. One is that maybe almost all the FTL ships came out of FTL and they founded these planets and they're now being subjugated. And maybe even the ship that he held in his hand, maybe something about holding it fucked it up and it got stuck doing quantum wheelies, in which case that's the last one he's looking for, kind of thing. Or I have trouble with this because he's obsessed with retribution / rewriting the story, and he's still searching. So there's just like some gap there that we haven't filled.
Yeah.
I don't know if we actually have enough information to know exactly why he cares about it. I think it's almost like the kind of like big, huge question mark too of, oh, you think it's you we're fighting on Antioch. Like,
yes. Like, oh, you think you're the main event. You think that you're the big deal, but actually like there is something bigger and more important that we are still investigating. I think that's exactly right.
Yeah, but it's not clear that that's like driving him either, because that's the same time that he's just sleeping around the ship, right?
Oh, I don't think he cares about Antioch either. I just meant that it, like, in terms of the same energy of you think you are the ones we care about, is like no one gives a shit about BOE. Maybe, in fact, he doesn't care about the FTL trillionaires and it's something else that he is looking for. I mean, I don't know, but I think he still has something that is driving him in a way that doesn't totally make sense.
Before we move on, could we talk about the resurrection beast?
I would love it. Yes, please.
So saw a Reddit comment, and thank God for finally being able to break social media quarantine and just like devour Reddit threads after we finished everything.
I know, even just preparing for this episode, I was like trying to remember things and I was like, I can Google it.
So from this, a Ninth House subreddit comment says, Faroon is literally the word for Neptune in Vedic astrology. And I think we have a pretty good numbers on the rest of them. Number 6 kept sucking us into enormous sphincters and spraying us with worms, which Uranus, right? No notes is what they say. Number 4 was a humanoid creature with a beautiful face who held me under the water and spoke in a lovely voice, but it only repeated die, die, die. Venus, god of beauty, right? Like we think that one. Number 8 was a giant head. Its ribs were bloody bandages. It was red and had a single eye of green that moved all about the body. Jupiter has one large red eye. It's red with white stripes. Number 2 spewed quicksilver, right? Mercury, which quicksilver is,
literally
mythology.
Mercury.
Yep. And then number 1 was a great incoherent machine, a mechanical monster with swords for wings and great horns of myelin, tessellated over with graves. Probably Mars, right? Like a war/war machine planet.
Okay.
So on and so forth. So we have, I think, a pretty good idea of at least some of the RBs, but yeah.
Yeah, you can figure out basically all of them.
Are there any that are missing? We don't hear about Saturn. True?
No Saturn, no Pluto. And I just want to confirm, we don't think the sun has an RB, right?
God, if the sun had an RB, like what's it doing? Why is it not like just insanely overpowered as like the soul of a star?
Our missing RB we think is Electo, right? / AL. We're not miscounting the sun.
Well, there's a comment early on in Hera where she says like the math doesn't make sense even at first glance. And that's like your clue that Electo isn't out there as an RB.
But it is also still weird. So she comments on the math immediately after this line where he says, there were 9, we called them by number. Over 10,000 years, we've managed to take out a grand total of 5, and then explains 3 of them that they take out. So there's something wonky in the math. It's possible that they killed another one that he doesn't explain, and that the last one is Electo, but math discrepancy is like Tamsin's favorite game. You know, she's constantly like, by the way, 16 came, but 8 lictors left. Like, woohoo. All right, let's talk about who's talking to Blood of Eden. So about 6,000 years ago, Source Graham, aka Cassie, reached out to Blood of Eden, right? Presumably also reached out to the 6th house and created the break clause. Do we have any thoughts on this? What drove this to happen?
Just now, I'm kind of wondering if it's all just everybody over the years separately coming to the same conclusion, which is that Jod lied about where his powers come from, and they never had to do perfect lictorhood. And so now Cassie's just like, I'm going off on my own. But Cassie had to have known from like almost like the very beginning of her house founding, because they have the break clause.
I don't know if that was initiated after the founding of the 6th house or something that was in the beginning, But either way, 6,000 years ago is a lot faster than everybody else starts defecting, right?
Yes.
So there's something that Cassie figures out truly early on. And
she is like their spirit expert. So, to some extent, she could be trying to figure out whatever Harrow's numbers discrepancy is far earlier.
yes.
She has exposure to souls. We've talked about both sides of the river. I think maybe she was also building in the river. I can't remember who was doing that.
Yes, she's the one who's described as being able to build in the river. And she's the one who, like, Augustine is their backup river guy. She's the one who was the brilliant river manager.
So if she's the one that's like, living amongst the souls, which is very explicitly Jod's weak point, like, I think she has like a special advantage.
Stuff?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's just definitely God's weak point. He would not have an advantage in that scenario and be able to cover things up as well. And she would have like kind of unique exposure and ability to work within that system. That's the only thing that I've got going on as to why she's special, is she was their spirit expert.
So given that she's special, I also want to talk about my other pet theory that is potentially insane. I don't think Cassie's dead. So explicitly, we know that Ulysses is dragged with an RB into a stoma, or drags an RB into a stoma. He's gone. Cyrus dies dragging an RB into a black hole. And the other one that dies is Cassie. So supposedly, she lured a resurrection beast. It is number 7. It's Varun. Lured a resurrection beast down and then was ripped to shreds by 10,000 feral ghosts. And this report comes from Mercy, who stood on the bank and watched her die. She led them away from the brain. I was there in projection, and I saw when they seized her legs and arms. I think this does not make sense. This does not hold up to scrutiny. Tell me more, Brooke.
Brain, the fact that RBs don't like, or the ghosts are never around RBs. I don't, the brain thing is weird because the brain is supposed to be what they kill, I think. Or what they don't kill. I don't know. The whole thing didn't make sense. There's a lot of like just confusing mumbo jumbo there.
A lot of hand waving.
But fundamentally, like, she like physically descended into the river, which means that her body was torn apart. But like, nobody dies when their body dies.
Yes, great point.
This book series.
All of this great point,
the
right?
Soul is its own entity.
She goes in bodily, and Mercy says that she was ripped apart by feral ghosts, but also says only that she saw when they seized her arms and legs. So it's also possible that she was literally carried away by these ghosts as opposed to ripped apart. But if she was ripped apart, I agree, her physical body is not necessarily the same as her soul. It's insane that there would be ghosts anywhere near a resurrection beast, let alone 10,000 of them, which to me says that this is something. So I believe that Cassie recruited these ghosts to stage her death, basically. And I think she went to the other side of the river. That's where I think she is.
Yeah.
I like it.
I like it.
Okay. All right. We'll just leave it alone then.
When you say you think she's alive, you think body and soul.
What is a body?
Soul. Yeah. I don't have an answer for that. Okay. Of course, Cassie is early on the uptake, so she does kind of defect to BOE 6,000 years ago, but something like, I don't know, 50 years ago, I'm basing this on 25 years ago, BOE gets, 25 years before Gideon is born, BOE gets a demagogue, and that's Commander Wake.
I'm sorry, I'm stuck on the last point where we were talking about Cassie,
Yes.
and because you also wrote notes on Varun, which...
Oh, that's right. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me.
I feel like it's a rewind. Hold on. Varun was the one who Cassie was quote unquote luring, right?
Yes.
And I just basically searched for Cass' name in the book the whole time and just like looked at everything they said about her, and it's like she was, what was it? She survived 7 minutes, they said. The RB surfaced after 20, brain and body intact, and then went dormant for like a good century and a half. And it's just like, what if they're in cahoots?
Thank you.
Like Varun, we know Varun like is, kind of has like some tie to Alecto. Maybe he's also got a tie to Cassie.
Oh my god.
I don't know why Varun is a man in my head. Is gendered.
Neptune, right? Neptune is Poseidon.
Maybe that's why.
At least in my head, it's a he.
thank you so much for bringing this back, Brooke, because I had forgotten entirely. But I agree. I think Cassie is in cahoots with Varun. I think Cassie communed with Varun in that time period. We have a 13-minute window and 13 minutes in the river, which we know is not equivalent to outside time.
That's true. Like, how many years of light travel?
Tough to know what happened there, but I think it's really interesting that Varun is someone who we actually interact with regularly, and multiple lictors seem to know them. So, for example, Pyrrha has a moment when she looks out the window and talks to Varun and says, I don't blame you, man. He was always, trying to find a sword to throw himself on. And we actually have 2 different lictors that die fighting Varun, but both of them die off screen. And I don't fucking buy it. So I don't think either Gideon or Cassie is dead. That's right. No one's dead. I don't believe in death anymore.
The only one that I believe is truly dead is the one that got sucked in the stoma. I'm not even sure a black hole could really take you, although it might just send you into time warp for God knows how long. That one's a gray area based on physics, but only the stoma for me is gone. Everyone else, soul's still in the river.
Can we actually really quickly make a pact here on Frontline 5th? If Tamsin ends the 4th book with "It was all a dream," we go and egg her house. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sorry. I just had a deep moment of fear. I was like, and none of them were dead.
Except for the guy in the stoma. Wait, did Augustine get sucked into the stoma too?
Yes. So actually,
R.I.P. Augustine. Yeah.
I don't know. I think we're going to see them all again. This is my other theory. I think we're going to see everyone in the next book. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to see Hot Sauce. We're going to see Isaac and Jean-Marie. We're going to see Augustine. It's going to be a great time. Okay.
Kevin!
Oh, Kevin. Well, it's clear that we overloaded ourselves. We're going to have to go buy a bunch more yarn because this murder board is too fucking big. So, we're going to come back next week with yet more murder boarding. Please stay tuned until then. In the meantime, you can check out our website, frontline5th.podbean.com, or follow us on Instagram and TikTok, which are linked in the show notes. If you enjoyed this podcast, please tell your friends and give us a 5-star rating anywhere you can. And of course, if you didn't enjoy the podcast, feel free to lie. We have a Patreon, which you can join for access to bonus content every month. You can become a patron, and they all have yarn and corkboards at patreon.com/frontline5th, and you can check out our merch at our Redbubble store, linked in the show notes. Finally, if you have any fun theories you'd like to share with us, feel free to email us at frontline5th@gmail.com. And with that, I'll just remind you not to unlock any tombs or enter any doors without permission because, ghosts. Bye.
Frontline 5th is a Locked Tomb podcast conceived by Maria Adamako and starring Maria Adamako, Hannah Grenwald, Brooke Anderson, and John Ryan. Our cover art was designed and created by Maria Adamako, who also edited this episode. Our fabulous music was composed and recorded by Blake Anderson. Sonia Grenwald designs our killer merch. Hot, gorgeous. The Locked Tomb series is a completely dope-ass book series by Tamsin Muir, who does not know we exist and is in no way affiliated with this podcast.